Imagine you're at your own engagement party, surrounded by family, laughter, and love, when your mom hands you a glass of red wine, and something just doesn't feel right. What if one tiny decision, just swapping glasses, saved your life? Yeah, this one gets real dark. My mother insisted on hosting the engagement party. That alone should have been the first red flag. Every napkin folded by hand, candles color-matched to the wine labels. Even the playlist was curated to make sure no song reminded anyone of a past divorce. It was spring in Charlottesville. I remember the weather because it was the only thing she couldn't control. The rain had stopped just an hour before guests arrived, leaving everything smelling of wet bark and lilac. The event space she chose overlooked a vineyard, lit with hanging bulbs that made everything look soft, romantic, fake. There were nearly 50 guests, mostly extended family, a few people from Curtis's firm, and exactly 0 of my closest friends. My best friend Raina had texted me that morning saying something came up, that she didn't want to add more stress to my plate. I remember reading it, frowning. It didn't sound like her at all, but there were so many things I ignored that day. I was halfway through a conversation with Curtis's aunt about wedding cake flavors when my mother appeared behind me with 2 glasses of red wine. "For the bride-to-be," she said, flashing her perfected smile. I took 1 glass, but something about it smelled off. It wasn't sour or spoiled. It was faintly medicinal. My fingers tightened around the stem. The scent stirred something uneasy in my chest. But everyone was watching. Delia, my sister, slid beside me, still glowing from a joke someone made at her table. "Cheers, future Mrs. Calderon," she said, reaching for the glass in my hand. I didn't think, I acted. I swapped glasses with her mid-sentence, laughing like it was part of a playful sister thing. "Ladies first," I smiled. Delia rolled her eyes and took a sip. 30 minutes later, while I was helping arrange candles that had blown out near the buffet, I heard someone shout her name. I turned and saw her stumbling near the bar, her face pale as wax. Then she dropped. Everything moved in fast forward, heels clicking, chairs scraping, voices rising in chaos. I ran, heart clenching. Someone was already calling 911. Velma, my mother, was right beside her, theatrically kneeling, fanning her with a cocktail napkin like she was auditioning for a soap opera. "She probably drank too fast," she said, with that same tight smile glancing toward me. "Or maybe she didn't eat enough today." I froze. I couldn't say anything, not with everyone looking. But inside, the silence wasn't still. It was screaming. Raina wasn't there, and Delia drank the glass meant for me. That night, after the party ended, I showered until my skin burned. The scent of that wine clung to my memory like mildew. 2 days earlier, Raina had texted me, "Hey, your mom called, said you've been overwhelmed. She thought I should sit this one out, just want to respect your space." It hit me then. Velma hadn't just orchestrated the party. She curated who was allowed near me. Raina was the one person I would have confided in had I smelled something suspicious. Velma knew that. She made sure Raina wasn't there, and I let her. I let my mother control the guest list, the playlist, the flow of the evening, and nearly the course of my future. I thought about Delia lying in a hospital bed while Velma was probably fluffing throw pillows back home, pretending the whole thing was an accident. If I hadn't traded glasses. My mother hugged me before leaving the venue that night. I felt her hands cold against my back, like they were waiting to push. "You did great, sweetheart," she whispered, "just like we practiced." I didn't respond, but inside, something was breaking free. A voice I'd quieted for years. I went to the kitchen, pulled out the cork from the leftover bottle, and smelled the wine again. Same strange note. I wasn't imagining this. The next morning, I called the event space manager and asked about security cameras. I wasn't sure what I expected, but I knew one thing. If she was willing to do this to me now, what else had she already done? By early afternoon, the day after the party, the footage request was still pending. I hadn't eaten much, just picked at dry toast and pushed eggs around my plate like a kid avoiding vegetables. Curtis offered to drive me to the hospital to see Delia, but I said I needed time alone. That was only half true. I needed answers, and I needed them without more smiling lies. He sat across from me on the couch, clutching his coffee like it might anchor him to the floor. His foot tapped nonstop, the kind of nervous habit he usually reserved for big client meetings. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, not meeting my eyes. I looked up slowly. "Please don't say it's about the wine." He shook his head. "Not directly." Then he paused, like he had to decide whether to ruin my day or keep protecting me. That's when I knew it was going to hurt. 3 days before the party, your mom asked to meet me. She said it was about logistics, venue, guest count, that sort of thing. "Logistics," I repeated, voice flat. "Sure." She chose a quiet spot near the courthouse, coffee bar with no one in it. 5 minutes in, she brings up your exes, casually, like someone mentioning bad weather. I felt a chill forming in the center of my chest. She said she didn't want to see you repeat your past mistakes, said you deserved stability, then... He stopped again. "Then what?" I pressed. "She offered me money, said she could write a check on the spot if I agreed to end things. Quietly, walk away, disappear." I blinked, unsure whether to laugh or scream. "She brought up the suit I settled years ago," he added. "Said if I refused, people might hear a different version of what happened." "You're telling me," I said slowly, "that my mother blackmailed you." "She didn't use the word," Curtis muttered. "But yes, that's exactly what it was." I stood up, arms crossed so tightly I could feel my nails digging into my sleeves. "And you didn't think to mention this before?" "I didn't want to make things worse. You were already stressed about the party, and your mom has a way of controlling the narrative," I finished. "Yes, she's very practiced." He didn't reply. That same day, I finally responded to Raina's text from last week, the one where she mentioned Mom calling her off. At the time, I assumed it was just Mom being overly dramatic, but now I understood the pattern. Raina replied immediately, like she'd been waiting for me. "I wasn't sure if I should say this," she wrote, "but I just got a weird anonymous message this morning. Said I was interfering. Creepy tone. Looked like it was sent from a burner app." She sent a screenshot. The message was short, but it chilled me. "She's fragile. You're making it worse. Walk away while you still can." It didn't take a genius to know who was behind that. I stared at my phone for a long time. My thoughts weren't racing. They were folding in on themselves. I remembered Mom in high school telling me Jenny was a bad influence after we snuck out to a concert. By college, she had convinced me my roommate Lauren was secretly jealous and spreading rumors. Somehow, everyone close to me became toxic in her eyes, always with a warning, always for my own good. And I listened. I felt stupid. Worse than stupid, I felt manipulated. How much of my life had she puppeteered without me even noticing? Curtis tried again. "Maura, please, you have every right to be angry, but this isn't your fault." "I didn't say it was," I said, standing. "But if I don't figure out how far this goes, it's going to keep happening. She's isolating me. I need to stop it." I left him there, pacing softly between rooms while I grabbed my laptop and shut myself in the bedroom. I typed one word into Google: benzodiazepine. I clicked through articles, forums, medical glossaries, cross-referencing effects, availability, detection timelines. Somewhere deep in one link, I saw a chemical compound name that rang a bell: lorazepam. It had that soft, bittersweet smell, familiar in a way I couldn't place until I remembered Velma's bathroom cabinet. Little orange bottles tucked behind cold cream and vitamin C serums. I enlarged the image on screen. My breath caught. I've smelled this before. The smell was embedded in my memory now, not just from the glass at the party, but from something much older, the faint trace that used to linger on Velma's pillowcases or the inside of her purse. I couldn't shake it. I stared at the compound on my screen until my eyes blurred, then closed the tab, needing air. As I stepped out onto the porch with my mug of now cold coffee, my phone buzzed. It was a Facebook message, from Gavin. I hadn't spoken to him in almost a decade, not since my 3rd year at university, when we split under what I believed was mutual disinterest. But seeing his name now, it felt like a door cracking open to a room I'd been told never to enter. "I saw the news about your sister. I know this is out of the blue, but can we talk? There's something I should have told you years ago." 10 minutes later, we agreed to meet at a small cafe not far from campus. Gavin looked older, yes, but not weathered. His smile was hesitant, like he wasn't sure he deserved to be sitting across from me. "I almost didn't message you," he said, but when I heard what happened at the engagement party, it brought back a lot. I kept my face neutral. "Go on." "You remember how things ended between us? You thought I cheated." I nodded. "You were always vague about it, and then just disappeared." "I didn't cheat," he said flatly, "but your mom told you I did." I narrowed my eyes. "She showed you a photo of me with a classmate outside a bar. What she didn't tell you was that it was part of a group study meetup. Your mom had someone follow me. Then she sent that picture to you with a story already attached." I went quiet. "She also contacted my residency director," he added. "Told them I was mentally unstable, that I was dragging you down. I almost lost my placement over it." I blinked. "I tried to email you, call. I even left a letter with Raina." I remembered Raina giving me a thick envelope the week before graduation, but Velma had intercepted it. Told me it was some last-minute drama from Gavin and tossed it in the trash right in front of me. I didn't know. I figured. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small envelope. "I kept copies, voicemails, screenshots, in case you ever, I don't know, needed to remember that I didn't just walk away." I took it, my fingers trembling. "So it wasn't just me." He shook his head. "I think your mom's afraid of you being loved by anyone but her." I left the cafe in a fog. The memory of Velma hugging me that night after the party felt different now, like a snake curling around its prey, not a mother protecting her child. Later that evening, I visited Delia at home. She was pale, propped on the couch with blankets and a heating pad. She tried to crack a joke about taking one for the team, but her voice didn't have the usual mischief. "I need to ask you something," I said, sitting beside her. She looked over at me, wary. "In college, were you in love with someone named Sophia?" Delia didn't speak for a moment, then softly, "How do you know that name?" I shrugged. "I found a photo once, in one of your boxes." Delia stared at the floor. "We were in love, for almost a year. Then Mom found out." "What did she do?" "She called Sophia's parents, said we were engaging in inappropriate conduct on campus. She threatened legal action, told them she'd ruin her father's business if they didn't pull her out of school." I swallowed hard. "And the therapy?" Delia nodded. "Mom said I needed help rebalancing my emotions. She picked the therapist, drove me to every session, sat in on a few. I was so broken down I thought maybe she was right." Tears shimmered in her eyes but didn't fall. I told myself she just didn't want me to get hurt. But now I realized she was hurting me to keep control. We sat in silence. That night, I pulled out a battered box from our childhood. Inside were old notebooks, yearbooks, some mismatched earrings. At the very bottom, I found Delia's leather journal. The middle pages were torn out, but what remained stopped me cold. I feel like someone's watching me constantly. Mom knows things I haven't told her. She says it's intuition. I think she's reading my emails. I think she's talking to my professors behind my back. I shut the journal and leaned back. It wasn't just about the wine or the party, it was a pattern, and now I was ready to document it. I opened my laptop and typed the title, Documented Patterns, Velma Ridgway. I hadn't even finished naming the folder when my phone rang. Raina's name lit up the screen. "I got something," she said, skipping hello. "You're gonna want to sit down." 5 minutes later, I was parked outside her place, engine still humming. She met me at the door, eyes wide, holding a flash drive like it was made of dynamite. "It's from the venue," she said, leading me into her small living room. "I made a friend on their tech team. He was concerned." She plugged the drive into her laptop, pulled up a grainy time-stamped video, and hit play. The angle was from a high corner of the kitchen, covering the countertop, the prep table, and my mother. There she was, Velma, calm, composed, alone. She set 2 glasses down, reached into her purse, pulled out a tiny dropper bottle, 1 drop, then another, stirred gently with a spoon she wiped clean and placed back in her purse. She checked her reflection in the microwave door and smiled. My chest tightened. The video continued. I entered the kitchen. She turned, startled, then covered the tampered glass with a napkin and handed it to me. The smile never left her face. Then came the moment I swapped it with Delia's. Raina didn't say anything. She didn't need to. She was going to drug me, I whispered, barely recognizing my own voice. And she did it smiling. It wasn't rage I felt, not yet. It was something colder, heavier, the kind of betrayal that sits inside your bones, refusing to budge. Later that evening, I stopped by my parents' house under the pretense of checking on Delia. Velma wasn't home, which made it easier. I rummaged through the master bathroom drawers while Delia napped. 3 prescription bottles tucked beneath tissues and travel-sized lotions, all in Velma's name, all filled by different pharmacies. 1 expired, 1 dated 2 months ago, the 3rd freshly printed, alprazolam, diazepam, cyclobenzaprine. My hands didn't shake this time. I lined them up on the counter, took clear photos with my phone, then placed everything back exactly as I'd found it. I texted the photos to Raina. "Mara, tell me what you see," she replied within minutes. "Raina, that's textbook chemical suppression. None of those are mild, definitely not casual." The next morning, I walked outside to grab the mail and found Mr. Cletus leaning over his flower bed next door. He was retired now, an old man with sharp eyes and a voice like gravel, but he'd always been cordial. "You got a second?" he asked, waving me over. "Of course." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Didn't want to get involved, but I saw something strange the night of your party. Thought maybe you should know." "What was it?" "Your mother. She came out the side door real late, washed something down the alley drain, had gloves on, rubber kind, and she was holding this little brown bottle. Looked like the stuff I used to handle back in the lab." "You worked in a lab?" "Biochemistry. 28 years. You learn to recognize chemical disposal. She was being careful. Too careful for someone rinsing out wine." I swallowed. "Would you be willing to write that down?" He nodded. "I already have. Just in case. Left a copy in my shed." That night, I laid everything out on my dining table. Flash drive, photos of the prescriptions, Mr. Cletus's statement. One by one, I added them to the folder. Evidence phase 1. No more guessing. No more giving the benefit of the doubt. She wasn't just manipulative, she was dangerous. I opened my phone, found her number, hit call. She picked up on the second ring. "Darling," she said. That same syrupy tone. "I was just thinking about you." I kept my voice calm. "We need to talk. In person." A pause. "Everything okay?" "No," I said. "But it will be." Because now that I had proof, it was time she heard from me, face to face. I scheduled the family lunch for Sunday, my neutral excuse for gathering them under one roof. Delia had just been cleared to move around, so I offered to host at my place. I made a pot roast I knew Velma liked. Let her feel safe, feel in control. That was the trick with people like her. Let them think it's their stage, right up until you take the mic. The table was set for 6. Delia and Tamsin arrived first. He looked uncomfortable, kept checking his phone. Raina walked in next, giving me a knowing glance. Curtis came late, offered Velma a polite hug she didn't deserve. Then there she was, Velma. She floated in like she was descending from a cloud. Perfect makeup, pearls, a container of lemon bars in hand. "You always host so beautifully, Mora," she said sweetly. "I'm glad we're back to family time." I smiled, then turned serious. "Actually, that's why we're here." Everyone turned toward me. Forks stilled. Tamsin raised an eyebrow. "There's something we need to talk about," I said, my tone low but clear. "And this time, no one leaves the table." I walked to the TV, plugged in the flash drive, and hit play. The footage began. Velma in the kitchen, the dropper, the stir, the smile. She didn't flinch. She just stared. Delia's face went white. Tamsin sat forward, lips parting in disbelief. I clicked to the next slide, the prescription bottles. Then Mr. Cletus's statement, scanned and printed. "You tried to drug me," I said evenly. "And when Delia drank the glass, you played it off like bad shrimp." Velma finally spoke. "This is a gross misunderstanding. You're overreacting. You've always been too emotional, Mora, always making drama out of nothing." "Don't," I said. "Not this time." I was protecting you, she snapped. From yourself, from another bad decision, from another failure you'd blame me for. I locked eyes with her. You almost put your daughter in the hospital just to keep your illusion intact. The room went silent. Then Delia spoke, voice trembling. Did you know I was pregnant when that happened? Velma didn't answer. Delia looked at Tamsin. She knew and still let me drink it. His eyes darted between us, unsure where the line of betrayal ended. Velma folded her arms. This is ridiculous. I've never tried to harm anyone. You've twisted every gesture I've made into a conspiracy. You handed me poison in a wine glass, Mother. That's not a gesture. That's a choice. Her lips pursed. I did what I had to do. The words hung there like a knife suspended in air. Later that evening, Raina called me while I was loading dishes into the sink. She's escalating, she said, no greeting. What happened? I just got a text. No number, no contact info, just this. You should have stayed in your lane. This isn't your story. My grip on the dish towel tightened. She's threatening you now? Raina exhaled. It's darker than the last ones, like whoever sent it wasn't just warning me, like they meant it. She's losing control, I said. That's why she's lashing out. But it means we're getting close. Don't back off now. There was a pause. I'm not afraid of her, Raina finally said, voice steady. I'm afraid for you. I'm past fear, I replied. I'm in survival mode. The next day, Delia showed up at my apartment alone. Her makeup was smudged. Her hands shook as she gripped her tea. She's trying to get in Tamsin's head, she said flatly. He's been weird since Sunday. What happened? She told him I was unstable, that the collapse at the party wasn't an accident, it was a reaction to emotional stress. She implied I might be a danger to our son. She's using your mental health against you, I said, just like she did in college. Delia nodded, eyes glassy. She wants to break us, just like she broke everything else. She doesn't want daughters. She wants mirrors, I muttered, ones she can adjust. She thinks we're her legacy, Delia whispered. Not her children, her property. We sat in silence until Delia pulled out a small box. Inside were photos, letters, tiny scraps of a life she had built once, tried to reclaim, and lost again. She made me think it was all my fault. She made all of us think that, I said, placing a hand on hers. After she left, I sat at my desk and typed a message to Velma. You've made your move, now get ready for mine. Then I clicked send. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. My inbox had a rejection email from the Mid-Atlantic Arts Fund. I'd applied weeks ago, hoping to secure a grant for a community-based photo essay on domestic resilience. It was a long shot, but I'd put heart into it. The subject line read, "Thank you for your submission. Regrettably declined." That wasn't what raised my pulse. It was the second sentence. Given the tone of your previous email, we no longer feel aligned with your mission. I blinked. I hadn't sent them anything beyond the application form. Something felt off. I called Raina, and within an hour, we were sitting on her couch with her laptop open, retracing digital footprints. Raina was no hacker, but she'd worked in PR long enough to know how to trace metadata and IP strings. We found it, an email address created days after the engagement party. It looked almost identical to mine, just one letter swapped. The message was snide, arrogant, intentionally combative, and it was signed with my full name. Oh my God, I whispered. She impersonated me. Raina was already scanning the message header. IPs from Falls Grove. That's 2 blocks from my parents. She tried to nuke your reputation, Raina said flatly, and she almost succeeded. I felt my stomach turn as if I'd swallowed stones. Velma didn't just sabotage conversations anymore. She was now actively ruining livelihoods. That afternoon, while I was still processing the shock, Curtis called. He didn't sound like himself. They froze the contract, he said. My client, the film crew from Austin, they put everything on hold. What? I asked. Why? He hesitated. They got a tip. Someone anonymously flagged me as unreliable, said I was hard to work with and that I had a history of drug use. I sat up straighter. What the hell? It's about the lawsuit from years ago, he muttered. It was sealed, buried. Velma brought it up in passing last month. I didn't think she'd dig, but she did. She's coming after all of us, I said. He sighed heavily. I didn't think she'd come for me like this. She wants control, Curtis. She's not above character assassination to get it. His voice dropped to a whisper. Do you ever think she's just evil? I think she's terrified of becoming irrelevant, I said. And the only way she knows to survive is by making sure no one outgrows her. Delia showed up unannounced just before dusk. She looked pale, exhausted. She hadn't even knocked, just walked in and sat down. I need to tell you something, she said quietly. I waited. After we broke up, Mom took me to a therapist, said I was grieving in a destructive way. She picked the therapist, paid for it, drove me there. I remembered. Delia disappearing for months, vague references to working through stuff. She sat in the sessions, Delia continued. Not all of them, but enough. Enough to spin her version. I was labeled emotionally unstable. It went on my record. She said it would help me get time off classes. Said she was protecting me. My throat tightened. She broke me, Maura, she whispered. I thought I was just messed up. Turns out she handed me the hammer and told me to start swinging. I reached across the table and took her hand. You weren't broken. You were manipulated. There's a difference. Delia's chin trembled, but she nodded. She has to be stopped, she said. I nodded slowly. And we're the only ones who can do it. Later that night, I went into my studio. Not to edit, not to shoot, but to reconfigure. I pulled out a camera, set it to standby mode, tested the mic levels. This wasn't for art. It was for evidence. I placed it in my bag next to extra batteries, a spare SD card, and a copy of Velma's prescription bottles. She wanted a war? She just got one. By Thursday morning, my phone buzzed with a message from Raina. It was just a screenshot, a Facebook page. My name, my photo, but not me. The bio read, raw, real, recovering from betrayal. The posts were filled with vague emotional outbursts, quotes about unworthy partners, and worst of all, a blurry, backdated photo of Curtis holding a wine glass at our engagement party with the caption, "How many lies fit in a toast?" There were other photos too, private ones, shots I never uploaded anywhere. I stared at the screen, bile rising in my throat. This wasn't just sabotage, it was character assassination. She made this, I whispered to no one. The page had been created 4 days ago. The metadata on the photo matched the iPhone model my mother still used. Raina dug deeper. The IP? A residential line registered in Falls Grove. She wasn't hiding it anymore. She was trying to bury me in broad daylight. I reported the page, flagged every post, then began screen recording the entire thing. Evidence again. She's not content destroying my relationships, I told Raina over the phone. She's trying to replace me, with a version of me she controls. And what are you going to do? Raina asked softly. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I turned to Curtis and said, we're not waiting anymore. That weekend, we held the wedding, not the one we'd planned. No country club, no catered hors d'oeuvres, no guest list managed by Velma, just 10 people at a friend's vineyard an hour outside town. The late sun slanted through bare vines. The air smelled like earth and pine. I wore a white linen dress I'd found at a vintage boutique. Raina officiated. Delia stood beside me, mascara smudged but smiling. Gavin brought his camera. Tamsin held Delia's hand, their son squirming on his hip. We kept it simple, no vows read aloud, just quiet promises with our eyes and palms. There were no tears, no drama, just peace. It wasn't the wedding Velma orchestrated. It was the marriage I needed. After the ceremony, Curtis and I stayed behind while everyone drove back. We sat at a small wooden table with a single candle between us. He reached for my hand. You still worried she'll find a way to ruin this too? He asked. She already tried, I said. But this part she can't touch. That night, back home, I uploaded something to YouTube. A 10-minute documentary I'd been building over the past few weeks. Clips, voice recordings, scanned pages, testimonies. I didn't use Velma's name. I didn't need to. The title was, When Family Hurts, The Invisible War at Home. It started slow, an anonymous narrator describing cycles of emotional manipulation. I layered in Raina's audio, Delia's journal excerpts, security footage snippets blurred just enough to protect privacy. I kept my face out of frame. My voice was steady. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I told the truth. By morning, it had 10,000 views. By afternoon, it had 50. The comments poured in. I thought I was alone. "This is my mom, word for word. Thank you for saying it out loud." Some offered comfort, some shared their own stories. One simply wrote, "She doesn't own your story anymore." That evening, I received a voicemail. Velma's voice, smooth, unbothered. "So," she began, "this is the game now. You want to paint me as the villain? Don't forget who raised you, who fed you, who built your future." Her voice turned sharp. "I made you, and I can unmake you. Don't push me, Maura." I sat with the phone in my hand for a full minute before I hit delete. No reply, no more power plays. I whispered to no one in particular, "Not this time." And this time, I meant it. By Friday morning, I did what I never thought I'd do. I uploaded the full, unedited video of the family confrontation. The audio wasn't perfect, but it was clear enough. The moment I played the security footage, Velma's scoff. Her voice, sharp as ever. "Oh, please, Maura. You've always been dramatic. You're twisting things like you always do." The table had gone silent in that recording. Raina's wide eyes, Delia trembling, Tamsin furrowing his brow. Then Velma again flippant. "So I've kept tabs. Big deal. I'm your mother. I have a right to be concerned." I hadn't planned on releasing it, but after that voicemail, I knew silence only fed her. Raina reshared the video across platforms, writing, "This is what covert emotional abuse looks like. Listen carefully. You might recognize someone." It hit a nerve. People flooded the comments with heartbreak and rage. Some admitted to hearing those same lines from their own parents. Others said they'd never thought to call it abuse, but now they did. I didn't just name her. I held up a mirror. Velma couldn't spin this into oversensitivity or rebellion. She was on tape, and the internet never forgets. Curtis joined the wave next. He'd held on to the guilt, the shame of being cornered by Velma like some schoolboy. But now the gloves were off. He published a blog post titled, "When My Fiancé's Mother Tried to Buy Me Off." It was brutal, honest, complete with screenshots of her offer, $20,000 in exchange for stepping away respectfully, a veiled reference to his legal settlement from years back, and her parting message, "It's better to exit early than be exposed later." It spread like wildfire. Men's mental health forums picked it up. Women messaged saying, "My mother-in-law tried the same thing." One therapist even quoted it in a podcast. This is how weaponized power can cross generational and gender lines. When I read his closing line, I didn't speak up to hurt her. I spoke up so no one else feels cornered the way I did. I cried, not just because he'd spoken, but because someone finally believed me out loud in the open. Meanwhile, Tamsin, quiet, steady Tamsin, stood up too. At a local community center event for family mental health awareness, he was invited to speak. Delia didn't even know he planned to say anything. I sat beside her, watching her shift nervously as he took the mic. He began calmly, recounting their early years together. Then he looked right at the crowd and said, "My wife is not unstable. She's not dangerous. She's resilient. But what she survived wasn't protection. It was manipulation." He told them about Velma's quiet conversations, her warnings that Delia might be a risk, how he had believed them, how ashamed he was, and how he'd finally seen the truth. "She almost cost me my family," he said, "but I know better now." Delia was silent, cheeks damp. Then their son, perched on her lap, clapped with wide-eyed joy. "Mommy, you're brave," he said, so loud the whole room heard. "That moment will stay with me forever." Velma didn't respond right away. She didn't post, didn't call, didn't send letters. But the silence didn't mean peace. It meant power slipping. 2 days later, someone filmed her at the grocery store, walking the frozen aisle, eyes darting at every whisper behind her. One woman murmured as she passed, "That's her, the mom from the video." Velma kept her chin up, but I recognized the twitch in her jaw. the same one from my childhood when she knew she couldn't control a room anymore. Online, debates exploded, some calling for compassion, others asking where accountability begins. But for the first time, no one defended her. Not publicly, not anonymously, not even with a maybe. The mask had cracked, and beneath it, the person they saw wasn't misunderstood. She was calculated and caught. Months passed like breath on a mirror, visible only when you stopped to notice. Fall folded into winter. My inbox quieted. So did the buzz around Velma. Her phone calls vanished. Her presence at charity events, book clubs, luncheons, gone. People stopped asking where she was. They started asking why she never apologized. I didn't answer those questions. She didn't either. Raina told me Velma canceled her annual holiday brunch. Invitations were never sent. The women who used to orbit her fell into smaller, gentler circles. I heard rumors she still went to the store across town, wore sunglasses inside, kept her voice low at checkout. She didn't reach out. Not to me, not to Delia, not to anyone. And yet her silence wasn't victory for us. It wasn't revenge either. It was nothing, which for someone like Velma was the deepest loss of all. Control had slipped. Not because I stole it, but because she misused it until it snapped in her hands. Delia, meanwhile, was transforming in ways I couldn't have dreamed back when this began. Every Thursday morning, she volunteered at a local center for adult children of narcissistic parents. Sometimes she just sat beside newcomers listening, handing out tea. Other times, she led small discussions, her voice steady. "You're not crazy. You were conditioned." Tamsin started joining her, quiet at first, then engaged, nodding when Delia spoke, squeezing her hand when old guilt flickered. They entered therapy together, slowly, intentionally. Their son no longer flinched at raised voices. He painted sunflowers on the kitchen wall with finger paints, and no one made him clean it off. Raina's podcast exploded. The episode about our story, she called it The Poison in the Punch Bowl, got over 40,000 downloads in a week. Emails poured in, some angry, some grateful, all raw. Curtis, newly hired by a nonprofit law firm focused on mental health discrimination, told his story during an onboarding meeting. His new supervisor said, "Thanks for being honest. That's the kind of truth that keeps our work grounded." And me? My photo series opened in a modest New York gallery, 20 frames, each featuring portraits of people who had been silenced by family control. Each face carried lines of survival. One woman stood in front of hers and cried for 5 straight minutes. We titled the collection Unspoken. At the end of the exhibit, I left a guest book. One note caught my eye. "You reminded me that love should never require silence." I didn't know who wrote it, but I carried those words home with me. 2 weeks after the exhibit, I received a letter. No return address, but I knew the handwriting before I opened it. 4 words. "You embarrassed this family." That was all. No apology, no acknowledgement, just accusation, delivered with surgical precision. I didn't cry, didn't shout. I held the letter in the sink, struck a match, watched it curl, blacken, vanish. She would never say sorry, but I didn't need her to. I wasn't healing to forgive her. I was healing to free myself. That night I walked into the nursery, walls still unpainted, crib only half assembled. On a high shelf, I placed my camera. Not to record, not this time, just to remind myself where I'd been, and what I'd chosen instead. A soft kick rippled across my belly. I rested my hand there and whispered, "You'll never have to earn my love, not like I did." It wasn't closure, but it was something better. It was peace. We didn't win by fighting her. We won by refusing to let her define us. Sometimes the most painful battles aren't the ones we shout through, but the quiet ones we walk away from. Maura's story reminds us that real strength isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your voice after years of being silenced. Have you ever had to set boundaries with someone you loved just to protect your peace? If this story spoke to you or reminded you of your own journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. More true, powerful stories told with honesty and heart are coming soon.